All right, hello and welcome to Neptune Talks. This is our brand new podcast all about enterprise tech, SAP, AI, basically how big organizations find their way from, complexity to clarity. And this is it, our very first episode.
We're excited to be kicking this off, and I think before we dive into today's topic, it's probably worth talking about why we're even doing this.
Exactly, because enterprise tech has hit this weird point where there's more information out there than ever, but somehow far less clarity.
Yeah, and every organization is getting the same memo, right? You have to modernize. You need to adopt AI. You've got to be faster, more agile, deliver better experiences.
Right, all the buzzwords.
But the part that gets left out is just how hard that is when you're running these massive mission-critical systems, like SAP. It's not as simple as just flipping a switch.
And that's kind of why we chose to do this as an AI powered podcast, too. It lets us move a bit faster, go deeper into these complex topics without getting stuck in, traditional production cycles.
Mm-hmm. It lets us slow down the conversation to actually unpack the ideas properly instead of just skimming the headlines.
Totally. That's the gap we want to fill with Naya Talks. This isn't about chasing trends, it's about looking beneath the surface.
And talking honestly about what actually works, what doesn't, and why some great ideas, well, they just fall apart when they meet the reality of a big enterprise. We want to ground this in real platforms, real decisions.
Exactly. Which is why for our first episode, we're not starting with some big prediction about the future of AI. We're starting with evolution.
I like that because successful platforms are rarely born fully formed, right? They evolve, they adapt to real problems, real constraints. And I think Neptune Software is a perfect example of that.
So, where does that story start? What was the initial problem?
It starts with a problem that anyone who's worked in SAP for a while will know intimately. SAP is incredibly powerful, but historically, it hasn't been easy to work with. Building apps took specialist skills, long timelines.
Right. A lot of effort for something that might still feel clunky to the end user.
Precisely. And at the same time, user expectations were just exploding. People wanted mobile access, intuitive interfaces. They wanted business software to work like the apps on their phone.
So there was this growing gap between what SAP could do technically and what people actually experienced.
That's the gap Neptune was founded to close. And the core idea from the very beginning was never to replace SAP. It was to work with SAP natively to make it easier for developers to build modern, fast, user-friendly applications that still respected all the enterprise rules like security and governance.
That SAP native part seems really important. So it wasn't some external thing bolted on the side.
It's critical. It became part of the SAP landscape. And for developers, that was a game changer. Suddenly, they weren't fighting the complexity anymore. They were just focused on solving business problems.
So in the early days, it was really about developer empowerment, giving them better tools.
Yes, and that developer-first mindset is so often overlooked. Developers are the bridge between a company's strategy and actually making it happen. If you make their work easier, you speed up the entire organization.
So it's not just about making things look a bit prettier. It's about fundamentally changing the workflow for that person.
Exactly. And it applies to so many areas. Or think about a field service team. Instead of having to call back to the office to check on a part, or filling out paperwork that someone has to manually enter into SAP later, they can do it all from a mobile app, right there on the spot. That's a huge win for efficiency and the customer experience.
And I bet it gets rid of a ton of paperwork too. No more clipboards and forms that get lost or have coffee spilled on them.
Precisely. Think about something like safety compliance checks. Instead of a stack of forms that someone has to manually key in later, if they even remember to, a technician can just go through a checklist on their phone, maybe take a photo as proof, get a digital signature, and poof, it's all instantly and securely in SAP. The data's cleaner, it's immediate, and it closes that loop between the field and the back office completely.
That reminds me of a real-world case I read about. Rust-Oleum, the paint company, it's a perfect example of this.
Oh, yeah? What was their situation?
It was a classic paper-based problem. Their main European warehouse was running on printed out lists for picking orders. And the whole system kind of relied on the institutional knowledge of one guy who'd been there forever.
Wow, that's a huge risk. I can't imagine it's easy to train new people in a system like that, especially if you need to bring in temporary staff for busy periods.
Exactly. They said it took weeks to get a new person up to speed. So they used Neptune to build a mobile app that runs on handheld scanners. It guides the staff through everything, picking, packing the works, all connected to SAP in real time.
Don't tell me. The training time dropped to a day or something?
Pretty much, they got it down from weeks to just a single training session. And, the whole operation just became more efficient, more accurate. It totally modernized their warehouse.
That's a brilliant example. It's not just an abstract idea of efficiency, it's a real measurable impact. It's about making the system work for the people, not the other way around.
Right. So it removes that friction and the potential for human error. Okay, I get it now. That was the first big leap, really. Okay, so that makes sense. But then things evolved again, right? Where did low code come in?
Well, as more customers came on board, the need changed. It wasn't just about building apps faster, it was about scaling that ability across the whole organization. That's where low code entered the evolution. But, and this is important, Neptune approached it very differently.
Yeah, because low code can have a bit of a reputation problem in the enterprise, can it? People hear it and think loss of control, shadowity, apps that don't scale.
They absolutely do. And Neptune was very conscious of that. Low code was introduced as an accelerator, not a replacement for good architecture or governance. It was a way to let teams move faster, but without sacrificing that all-important oversight. It's a balance.
Which brings us to the next big shift, AI. It feels like every conversation's about AI now.
It is. But by the time AI became unavoidable, Neptune was already in a great position. The platform was modular, it was adaptable, so instead of just tacking on AI as a feature, they could embed it meaningfully into how apps are built and used.
And in the enterprise, AI isn't really about replacing people, is it? It's more about augmenting them.
That's the key distinction. In Neptune's world, AI helps developers by cutting down repetitive work. It helps business users interact with systems more naturally. But it all ties back to that original mission, simplifying complexity. AI is just the next powerful tool for doing that.
And I guess that deep native integration with SIP is what makes it safe for big companies to adopt. You can't just experiment when your core business processes are on the line.
You can't. It has to work within the system. So today, you've got more than 800 enterprises using Neptune, and that scale proves this evolution wasn't just theoretical. It solved real-world problems.
So that idea of evolution, not disruption, is really the core of it.
I think so. True enterprise transformation is rarely a big bang. It's careful, continuous improvement. Each stage of Neptune's journey builds on the last.
It's a great lesson for why patience and intention matter so much in technology. It shows innovation doesn't have to mean chaos.
And that's exactly what we're going to keep exploring in this series. Modernization, clean core, AI, low code, all of it. This was the foundation.
A perfect place to start. Well, thanks for listening to this first episode of Neptune Talks. We're so glad you're here with us, and we will be back very soon with the next one.